At the NIHR Biomedical Research Centre, we take the view that strong basic science underpins clinical and translational research. To undertake good basic science, we need to identify the best and brightest graduate students. One of our flagship BRC training schemes is a 4-year MRes PhD program. Joining me today are two of our BRC graduate students, Cinzia Imberti and Hoyin. Cinzia, this PhD MRes program is a 1+3, so 1 year MRes and 3 years in the laboratory doing a PhD. Tell me a little bit about the MRes and the laboratory rotations that provide the core part of this program.
I really enjoyed the MRes, and especially the laboratory rotation that allow us to experience different labs and learn new techniques that will have been useful later in our PhD. And yeah, it was a great start of the PhD.
Now you get to choose the laboratory rotations and you're a chemist, so that must have been an interesting experience for you.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience. I chose my rotation based on what interested me, on what I could put passion in, but also according to my background, I chose more chemistry-based project.
And so give me an example of some of the laboratory rotations you rotated through.
So my first rotation was in imaging cancer with radionuclide. In this rotation I learned how to use radioactivity in a good way to detect cancer at an early stage, and that was very helpful for later.
And did you find the other two laboratory rotations helpful towards your PhD?
Definitely. I actually loved all of the three rotational. I just chose the project that was more suited to me and to my capabilities, but all of them were very useful.
So tell us how your chemistry expertise has helped you with your current research project.
My research project involved a variety of skills. In the first place, I want to synthesize novel radio tracer and then to test them in vitro on cells to see if they are useful and actually potentially go into clinics, into patients.
And the long-term goal with this project in terms of the translation?
Hopefully will be a clinical trial with a tracer able to detect a different kind of cancer.
Thank you. So Hoyin, there are other aspects of the MRes program that we haven't talked about, including the generic skills modules. How did you find those?
We received a lot of training in a variety of generic skills, such as statistics, very important, flow cytometry, a very new but powerful technique, but as well imaging. We also have detection about proteins and actually a lot of different techniques that were very useful to me to be applied in the projects that I was doing.
So tell us a little bit more in detail about these modules.
Okay, so these modules contain lectures as well as sometimes hands-on experience. For example, I think the flow cytometry course was a great example of a combination of both. We had good lectures about the theory as well how it could be applied to different ways and different experiments. And then there was a particular day where we had to do it ourselves, basically, at the bench. And then we were guided through how to use the machines, which steps were important, and that helped a lot for us to use it in the lab afterwards on our own. Obviously, they do provide us a lot of support afterwards.
So, a busy year for you both. What would you say was the toughest thing about the MRes?
I think the toughest thing was actually the rotations were relatively short because they were 3 months. So if you think about it, about the first month you try to get acclimated to the lab, to the people, to the PI, which is the principal investigator, but as well to the topic. So you would like to read a good amount of background information in order to do well and to actively think about your project.
What were the most helpful bits of the MRes towards your current PhD project?
The generic skills were very helpful and made a lot of experiments possible. Furthermore, I think that the rotations helped me a lot by choosing which lab I want to go to and with who I wanted to do my work with.
So finally, tell me a little bit about your research project that's going on at the minute.
So I currently work on the most common form of pancreatic cancer, also known as pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma. We study the behavior of these cancer cells and would like to see whether they can change their behavior upon signals from cells outside the tumor. And hopefully with that information we can find new therapies as well possible druggable targets and to cure pancreatic cancer.
Cinzia, Hoyin, very many thanks for coming and telling us about your PhD program.
Thank you very much.
This MRes PhD studentship program is not just about basic laboratory research. Students who enroll benefit from the annual summer PhD retreat. They learn about written and presentation skills and the value of patient and public engagement. The idea is to set them up as principal investigators of the future.